Yeah, what's up, everybody? So, a year ago today, I released my first podcast episode on my 007 series. I've been doing the podcast for a few years, and I had decided that I wanted to just watch all of the James Bond movies because I had never seen them all before. I grew up during the Pierce Brosnan era and GoldenEye and all that, so I saw those. I saw the Daniel Craig films leading up to the release of No Time to Die, but I was never super into Bond. I was never a big fan. And I just thought it'd be cool to watch them all for the first time in order and do a podcast series on it. So my first episode came out March 20th, 2025. It's now March 20th, 2026. And I thought it'd be cool to just kind of revisit Dr. No, the first Bond film, which came out in 1962, directed by Terrence Young, obviously based off the Ian Fleming novel Dr. No, which was the sixth novel, I believe. And it's pretty crazy in the whole year. I've already done a few episodes where I've revisited certain Bond movies. I've watched them all numerous times at this point, and it's been a lot of fun to do and go back. And so I wanted to go back and see Dr. No. This is the third time I've watched it, so I'll just do a quick review. I also just started reading the book as well. I've got this big kind of collection right here. That's the crazy thing. I'm like such a Bond fanatic now. I've got posters. I've got like an original From Russia with Love French poster in my kitchen and all that stuff. I've got all these books now, and I'm just like a Bond fanatic now. And shout out to my friend Ivan De La Cruz, who got me this big book that has Dr. No and Casino Royale and a bunch of other of the books in there. When I made a video clip saying how I thought it was a tragedy that they apparently censor the new issues of the James Bond novels, I just couldn't handle it, because I just don't think we should be censoring anything, even though there are some things that are dated about the material. I just don't feel good about going back and like changing, what was there. Just let it be. So I've got some like older issues here. But anyway, let's talk about the movie, everybody. I'll be drinking a Red Stripe for this one, Jamaican lager, because this is something I noticed they drink in the novel and also in the movie itself. I haven't had one of these in a long time. It's super hot over here in Hollywood, California, so this is hitting pretty nice right now. So rewatching Dr. No my third time through, and you can go listen to my original podcast on it if you want to hear my original thoughts on first viewing. I did that one with my friend. We don't quite agree on everything, and I did say a lot of things wrong. I was listening to it the other day, and yeah, so there's some parts that kind of made me cringe, but whatever, it's all good. We learn and we get better. So watching it again, I will say this movie does hold up pretty well for me. I just still love this opening. We don't get like the opening theme like what you would see later on with like a Shirley Bassey, big bombastic kind of musical sequence with the intro, but we get this cool little animation with the dots. You get the gun barrel, hearing that James Bond like theme music for the first time. It's just awesome. I remember seeing this movie at the first time and just already knowing the theme, right? That's iconic. But then seeing it in the context of the first film, it just really blew me away. And it still does. Like, you can't help, at least for me, but get hyped the moment that music starts up and you get all the dot graphics and all that. Oh man, I forgot to write it down. I'll have to put the text in on who did the music for this one. Man, the name is escaping me right now. But the composer, amazing job. Was it Monty Norman or something? Amazing job with that opening James Bond theme. But I will say the rest of the score for this movie doesn't really live up to what we would see later when John Barry would do the music, or Dave Arnold or anything. The music is super, super dated and makes this seem almost a little more like a TV movie and like kind of cartoony and just really old, like 50s, 40s kind of old music at times, which was cool for an era, but I'm glad that it evolved as the films went on. This story is pretty straightforward. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but this story is pretty straightforward in that it's kind of a detective situation for Bond, where an agent named Strangways and his secretary get killed over in Jamaica. So M sends Bond, after switching his gun from a Beretta to a Walter PPK, sends Bond to just kind of investigate. So it's about Bond trying to figure out, who killed this agent, what went down, meeting up with CIA agent Felix Leiter, who in the novels he meets for the first time in Casino Royale, but in the case of this being the first film, he meets him in this movie. And so they kind of work together a little bit to figure out, what's going on in this island called Crab Key and this guy named Dr. No. where I think this movie really shines, well, in a few ways. Number one, the casting of Sean Connery was so great. I understand that Ian Fleming initially didn't want him. And then I know that Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman were actually trying to get Roger Moore at this point, but he was already booked. I think he was already doing the Saint series or TV show at this point.
I just can't wait for my next assignment. Me, working for James Bond. I'm so excited. You're not just teasing me, are you? You really are James Bond.
So pretty crazy that it could have very well, if things worked out a little differently, it could have been Roger Moore, which would have been interesting. But it ends up being Sean Connery. In the moment he hits the screen and delivers the iconic, James Bond line, the way the camera's on Sylvia Trench and it kind of pulls back into an over the shoulder of Bond right there as they're, playing cards at the table. And he just lights a cigarette and delivers that line.
Bond. James Bond.
He just owns the role immediately and oozes just like the ultimate coolness, the ultimate badass style, hair, just his overall look and vibe, the way he walks, like he just completely owns the part. And it's quite a bit different from literary Bond, but it's amazing how much he just influenced and just really kind of created the character for the screen. I hear that Terrence Young, the director, had a lot to do with like kind of the personality traits and then the way he wanted Connery to perform it. I still got to research some of that, but either way, like whoever's credited is, he just immediately embodies like this really awesome character that, man, every guy wants to be James Bond, right? Like it's pretty amazing. And what I really love about Sean Connery's performance as well, and I'm excited, I'm only about 4 chapters into the novel, but in the movie, what I really like is how good he is at portraying the subtext, right? Like what is not being said out loud, and the way we really get keyed into James Bond as a character, just in how he gets off the plane in Jamaica. A driver comes up to him and he's like, all right, hold on a second. And he makes a call to the people he's supposed to meet up with. Like, yo, did you send a driver for me? And they're like, no, we didn't. And he's like, okay. And he doesn't give away that he knows. He just goes with this guy and he knows that it's like a bad situation, but he's going for it to see where it's going to take him and what leads he can get. I just love that. I love everything between him and Miss Taro when he goes to her apartment. And it's very clear to us, again, without being stated out loud. It's all in the filmmaking. It's all in the direction. It's all in the shots and the visuals. He catches on that she's like listening when he's going to find files on Dr. No and Strangways and, find some leads, and the files are missing. And then he catches her kind of listening at the door. So from this point on, he's immediately suspicious. And again, he follows this lead, and you really just need to see the movie. Like, I can never explain this as well without you just watching it, but I think it's a masterclass in just like excellent writing, like not giving a lot of dialogue. I mean, there is dialogue, but again, it's all in the subtext. When he goes to her place and she isn't expecting him because they sent a car to kill him, but he avoids it. And then there's a moment too where you really see like the coldness in him and the coolness and the fact that at the end of the day, he's a secret agent, but he's also an assassin. He's a killer, 00 license to kill. And when he's kind of going into her room when she's on the phone and he's got the towel, almost like he's ready to strangle her with this thing. And it doesn't quite play out that way. But again, he's kind of playing the long game and see how this all turns out. And I think that whole sequence might be my favorite part of the movie. I think it's really brilliant. Again, maybe I'm giving it too much credit. I don't know, but it's still, I remember that stood out to me the first time I watched this movie, and it really stood out to me in a positive way again. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the film and the way he kind of pulls a fast one on her. And another like critical James Bond moment, and again, really doing a lot for the character in this first film, is when he waits for the doctor or the Professor Dent to come in. He knows somebody's coming to whack him at some point. So he's waiting in the apartment. He's got his silencer ready. And then he kind of tricks this guy, gets a little bit of information from him and then just whacks him. Cold-blooded, hardcore. It's a critical, like, James Bond moment. Again, we get a lot of insight into the character, and like it's all kind of cutesy and maybe fun in games at times when he's flirting with women or doing whatever he's got to do. But again, he's still a hardcore killer. And if he doesn't, need you anymore, or you try to like whack him, like you're gonna get it.
Mr. Smith and Wesson. And you've had your 6.
Again, some other parts about the movie. Yeah, I think it holds up pretty well. I really love the Ken Adams set design, where one of my other favorite moments in the movie, and Ken Adams would go on to design, like do a lot of the great production design for, I think, most of the Bond movies, at least up through the 70s. Brilliant work. And the first kind of sense of that great work is when Professor Dent goes to talk to Dr. No, who, mind you, we don't even see till pretty far into the movie. But there's this great almost kind of dome room he goes into with like layers of like marbling, and there's like a chair in the corner, and there's a kind of gridded sunroof and light coming through, so it projects the shadow on the wall, and it's just so nice and textured, and is like a really interesting indicator of what we would get in like some of the villain lairs later. It's hard to explain why I even like it so much, but I remember the first time I saw it, I was just like, oh, this is really cool. And I love the way it just composed in this wide shot. It just looks really great. And you just hear Dr. No's voice. They don't reveal him yet, which is something I think is pretty cool too, because this really sets the tone of what we would get in most of the Bond movies, where to me, a Bond villain is such a critical, important part of each film. I really hope I'm in focus right now. I can never quite tell because I don't have an autofocus lens and the monitor's pretty far. But anyway, I really enjoy, how they kind of build him up with just hearing his voice. And he's got such a great voice too. And you can tell that there's a lot of fear in Dent just to like come and speak to him. And I think when he is revealed in the end too, I mean, it's really the last maybe 20 minutes when they get to Crab Key. Bond meets Ursula Andress, who plays Honey Rider, which we got to talk about that. Obviously, another iconic moment. I think even if you've never seen a Bond movie, you've probably have seen that shot somewhere of her kind of like walking up on the shore and like the white bikini and the knife and tossing the hair back and all that. Anyway, so another iconic, the first kind of Bond woman in Honey Rider. And when they get caught up by Dr. No and they have that first meeting at the dinner table with him, I just really like that dialogue scene. Like, now we're into dialogue. Sure, it might be a little cliche with him talking a little bit about what he's doing and, the introduction of Spectre, which I understand in the novels is not the case. Like, we don't get Spectre till Thunderball, which comes a couple books after this. It would also be the 4th movie. But here, we start off with that. My understanding is that they didn't want to, in the filmmaking side of it, use Smersh or anything else too real right from the get-go, so that it wasn't, I guess, too polarizing for audiences or alienating certain people, whatever the case may be. So they wanted to go with Spectre, which is purely fictional. And I think that's pretty cool to start with that. Like, his first kind of like main kind of villain organization that Bond's got to go up against is set up in this movie. And yeah, I really like their dialogue there, and we get a sense of Bond's experience with dealing with these people before and like evil and world domination and all these kind of grand ideas, and he just keeps it pretty grounded. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think it's a really great scene between the two of them, and I don't mind that. It's like, I kind of like to see them sit down and have this like talk, and the fact that the reason Bond is there because he keeps avoiding getting killed, and so Dr. No like almost wants to recruit him because he's such an interesting kind of person to make it this far. Now, their final fight is pretty lackluster. They're in the hazmat suits, and the set is like kind of funny. It's great. Again, it's another indicator of what we would get later on. A little more on the cheaper side, but I'll take it. And pretty incredible. I mean, with that being said, this movie was made on $1 million budget, which is really wild. Like, even for that time, 1962, that's pretty crazy, man. Like, that's not a lot of money even back then. So to pull off what they did in this movie is pretty amazing. I mean, I just think it's just great filmmaking all around. And the fight is kind of lackluster, but it's okay. I mean, I dig it. It's, again, lower budget, older movie. I think it's overall a really good intro to the whole Bond, film series. overall, I think it holds up pretty well. My only beefs are just the music. The score is like, that's probably the most dated part of it. There is some weird editing where, especially in the opening, where there's like weird jump cuts and stuff that I don't really care for. Not as much as I felt we would see in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which, again, if I remember correctly, I don't have notes with me. I'm just going off the top. I believe Peter Hunt was the editor for this, and I think a lot of the Bond movies, and he would go on to direct On Her Majesty's. I think that was the name of the guy, Peter Hunt. So kind of interesting that, we get these like jump cut moments. It's like, did you guys just not shoot enough or didn't change the angle? I don't know. Just kind of weird considering all the other filmmaking is really great. It's odd to me. I wonder kind of what happened with those moments. But yeah, the music just being pretty dated. And there are a lot of moments. This movie clocks in at, I think, an hour 50 or an hour 40. Could probably be a little shorter. I mean, I'm very patient, but there are some moments that are dragged out a little too long. And it does almost feel like they're padding the runtime a little bit. Like there's a moment after Miss Taro gets arrested where Bond is kind of like setting up some vodka here and moving pillows around and walking across the room. And some of that's okay. I understand when he's setting it up to look a certain way for when his assassin comes. But they just spend so long with it, with him kind of walking and we're seeing the whole thing and him walking in and out of the hotel and this and that. I think some of that can be trimmed down. Now, don't get me wrong. I do like the moments, especially for this being the first movie, when he goes into his room and he's checking for bugs and checking everything and putting the talcum powder in the hair, which all that comes straight out of the Casino Royale novel. And I think it's good to like put that here in the first movie. Because again, without saying anything, you're learning a lot about the character and his experience and his confidence and his attention to detail. All these things are important for like who he is and how he operates in his job and how he stays alive. So that I'm down with. I like all that. But as the movie progresses, there's like a lot of moments where stuff just goes on a little too long. And it really did feel like just kind of padding the runtime. I think maybe assuming it's an hour 49 or 50, which I think it is, you can probably lose like 10 minutes. I think that would make it an even better pace. I mean, it is what it is. We're not going to change that now. And ultimately, I'm happy with what we got. But reviewing it, that is something I bumped on. And I think it stood out to me more on this viewing than it has in the past. Enough to where that, when I eventually rank all the movies again, that might kind of bump it down a little bit. But yeah, I think the key kind of great moments are the subtext and just learning who Bond is in this first movie. So I know I kind of went all over the place. Maybe next time I'll write a script or something. I don't know. If you stuck with me this long, then I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to this kind of revisiting of Dr. No. It is a recommend if you've never seen it and you want to get into Bond movies. I say you don't have to, but I think it is a nice place to start because we're setting up so many of Bond's characteristics. And even though we're not into like gadget territory and like the Aston Martin and the cars and Q and all that stuff yet, it sets up enough and is just like amazing to see just kind of the first steps of this, this series or this franchise and like the beginnings of it. So it's a high recommend if you've never seen it. I think everybody should see it if you want to get into the Bond movies, even if you're not planning to watch all 25 or 27 of them like I did over the last year. This is at least one to check out, so you at least have a good starting point. So I guess I'll let it go there, everybody. Again, thanks for listening. If you haven't seen it yet, if you look on the Drinks in a Movie YouTube channel, I've done a ranking of all 25 of the Eon produced Bond films. So go check out that video. That was on my first viewing of watching them all for the first time through the podcast series. So I'm going to do another one, maybe on like the year anniversary of that video, now that I've seen every movie more than twice. So I'll do a new ranking and kind of see. I'm curious where that's going to end up. So that'll probably be at the end of summer. But other than that, I have another video where I rank all my favorite kind of opening title songs. I rank my favorite Bond actors. And yeah, there's a few videos. I did my On Her Majesty's Secret Service, like modern day trailer, because I'm a filmmaker and I just thought it'd be fun to edit a trailer. And I came across this really cool updated, like modern trailer music that somebody made on YouTube, and it just inspired me to edit that. So there's like a few Bond related, videos on my channel. Also, if you go back into my podcast, you can see my initial first time watching every single Bond movie, starting in March 20 last year. Again, some of it's cringy. I'm not scripted or anything, and I do some research, but I mainly just go off what I saw in the movie. A lot of those episodes are solo, so you will hear some wrong information. And now that I'm like way more into the series and the history and all that, they can be a little hard to listen to if you're also someone like that, because you're going to hear me say names wrong and shit, but whatever. Anyway, guys, that's a wrap on this one. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.